So full disclosure, I have my computer up with notes of points that I would like to hit. So if at any point during this it looks like I'm reading or scrolling, it's because I am. I am not good. My first take is never the best. I am someone who has to refine my points and my projects over and over and over. So I'm not good off the cuff, which is just a preface, because speaking directly in front of a camera is a bit different for me. So I just, as much transparency as possible, I probably will look over and start reading. But essentially, I'm just thinking about solitude. I'm thinking about being a woman and practicing solitude. And I will keep using the term like practicing, like it is something to do. Practicing solitude, being a woman practicing solitude, and just kind of what I feel like I've gotten out of it and the way solitude has been challenging and why I continue doing it in spite of those challenges. I have 2 kitty cats. They will not let me do anything without them. So there's a very good chance you'll hear them, see them. Sorry. So I have wanted to take a vow of silence definitely since I was 12 years old. I was in the 6th grade and I would remember they were just like very boring, very gray. I lived in New Hampshire when I was 12. The sun doesn't shine very much, and just feeling so uninterested in what was going on. I wanted friends, I wanted acceptance, but my early childhood was spent moving. So I would have some friends, and then in a few years I would lose them, and then I would make some new friends, and then I would lose those. So being accepted by a group wasn't the only thing on my mind, because I had already seen other parts of the world and had already kind of started to digest the idea that there was life outside of where I was living at the time. So because of that, I was kind of interested in my own things that I could do by myself, or things that were always available to me. And so sometimes the day was just really gray and gross and boring, and I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to do any of these things, and I just wanted to be in silence. I wanted to take a vow of silence. I wanted to spend there goes Richard. He's never done this, but now that the camera is up, he's like gonna have me a little oak leaf snack. Richard, are you being a bad boy? I'm gonna let you. So and I just didn't want to. I felt like there was probably a doorway inside of me that was open really early on. That's what I like to think of it. I think everybody has this door inside them. Richard, you are misbehaving for the camera. Everybody kind of has lots of doorways inside them. For me, one about the nature of things going on. You were breaking that. Was open, and I wanted to explore it. I had an inner world that was just starting to be built, and I wanted to explore it. I wanted to go through that doorway. So I would pick a day at school and I just wouldn't speak. I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I didn't want to participate. Okay, Richard, we're done with you. We've seen all we need to see from you. Okay. I don't know. All right. We're gonna put my leaves to the side. Okay. So I just didn't feel like communicating. It made my peers not like me. It made them think I was being weird, trying to be really weird. It was not a likable idea. It also made school very hard. My school was very concerned about my well being. My parents got lots of calls about my behavior. And I get it. I get that you want happy, thriving sports teams, debate club. You want kids like that. There are just more than one ways to lead a life. There are more than one ways to lead a beautiful life. There are more than one ways to explore the world. So while many behaviors can be considered dangerous or harmful, I was honestly just chilling. I had other things on my mind. I still don't believe, I think you should drop out of school. That's what I think. And you should drop out of school. I'm building up to that. I understand that's not realistic. I understand you don't want that for people. I get it. I 100% get it. For me, I was fine. I was interested in other things. I wanted to meditate. I wanted to understand my parents. I wanted to understand my family. I wanted to understand my world. I wanted to understand things I was seeing. And that happened really young. That continued. That never went away. There was never a time where I was joining sports teams, where I was like, if we just coaxed her a little bit, she'd be on the volley. I was never like that. It's not my personality. And I think also is that we struggle with appreciating that communication isn't limited to language. Like, my dumbass cat, he wants attention. He wants me to play with him. He's been chasing me around the house all morning. He does those things to get attention. I know what he wants. He knows that I know when he does that. But we don't speak English to each other. I'm not like, Richard, go read a book. But we can communicate effectively. He knows what I'm thinking. I know what he's thinking. There are so many ways to communicate that doesn't require language. And I think that it's also a point of like community building. If you have the ability to ask your peers or acknowledge your peers that you don't want to communicate through language, you can communicate. Body language is communication, smoke signals, Morse code, art. And I'm making a joke out of it, but there are so many ways to communicate that aren't just through language. And I don't think it should be something on the edge of insanity, which is, such a wide scope, can encompass so many things, to not want to communicate through language. And there are reasons. It's easy. And if we say we're communicating back and forth, I understand this person. But all we're using is like a convenient form of communication. We're just speaking. There's so many other ways to do it. There's so many other interesting things to explore outside of communication. So some of this is like specifically unique to me. I'm sure not a lot of people moved states as often or moved schools as often. That is unique to my circumstance. It's unchangeable. It is what it is, and it is part of my experience with solitude. So when I was 15 years old, I stopped going to school completely. I spent most of my teen years in my bedroom with the door shut. And I had no plan, had nowhere to go. I was in my parents' house, reading. My mom would give me books to read, like they were required reading. So I read Sartre's The Age of Reason. I read Nausea. I read Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Old Man on the Sea. There's so many, but those are some highlights that I was reading as a teenager, and then I would be required to discuss them. I had a camera. I was given a camera because my interest in solitude meant that I was probably very artsy. That's like a signal for parents who are just trying to like meet their kid halfway. So I had a camera. I was taking self-portraits of me climbing out onto my roof through my bedroom window. At night, I would come out of my room and just like troll around the house. I would take pictures. I would go stand out on the porch and smoke my illegal cigarettes and look in people's windows. And it was a small, it wasn't a sleepy town. It was a mean, hostile South New Hampshire town of under 3,000 people. There wasn't much going on, but I was looking for stray cats. I was looking for windows left open. I was looking for signs of life that I could spy on. I was a spy. Having a camera was like having a pair of binoculars. I wanted to see life happen without me. I wanted to see what that looked like without me involved. And that is kind of a behavior that I've always had. I'm still this way. I know everything that my neighbors are up to in the complex that I live in. I know when new people are coming. I know people's work schedules. I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. This is why I make the work that I do, and probably why you're still watching this video, is because that's what I do. So I dropped out of school. I was home. I was making art all day long. I was studying art all day long. I was taking French class, teaching myself basically. So it was still a studious time, but it was an isolated time. And that was never like a circumstance that I really, really wanted to change. That continued. So when I was 19 years old, I moved to Arizona by myself, and I got an apartment that was 350 square feet. And it like scares me now to think about. It was just a boop. And I worked at the university, so my days were done midday. It was not early, midday. So I would walk home to my apartment and stay in my apartment. My timer was like little boop. And I never ran the AC because I didn't have much money. I had no money. So I would only run the AC like at nighttime. And so I would get home, it would be in the 90s. So I would just open my back door, let a breeze come in. I would keep my windows open all the time. And obviously I was a smoker because I was in solitude. Solitary people are smokers. And I would just put on like a big t-shirt and just lay. I was like laying in the doorway out this fire escape, and I would smoke just all afternoon. Sometimes I would write love poems in my mind. Sometimes I was crafting beautiful things I would say, or I was thinking about things. And I had no internet. I didn't have TV. I didn't have Netflix. I didn't have anything. It was just me. And the things going on in my mind, which is funny. It is a funny, but it was, and I didn't eat very much, or ever. I never really communicated with anybody. I rarely got text messages. People rarely came to visit. It was a time of solitude. Interrupted by necessity. Like, I did need to go to my job because I did need money to pay rent for the apartment. You know, like, I did need cigarette money. I did need, you know, like, these things were out of necessity. Taking a vow of silence does come with the like, that you need to get money somehow. So, and that was a pattern for most of my life. When I was in my early 20s, I lived in Savannah, Georgia. I moved to Savannah, and I was working at this tiny, tiny little art gallery, which was on like a third floor of this old building that would get like pigeon hawks up in the rafters. And I had a boss who would say there would be an extra $50 in your paycheck if you could hit pigeons with a slingshot and successfully dispose of them in the Savannah River with no one noticing. I never took up on that offer. Now that I'm older, it might have just been like out of curiosity, like maybe I can like hit one of these pigeons with a slingshot. I never tried, but it was tiny, tiny, tiny. So the setup was not financially fluent. I would get my paycheck and then there would be a date written on it, like don't cash until this time, because my boss needed to make sure the money was in the account. Like it was a very bare bones operation. Because of that, I worked alone a lot of the time. And when tourism was very slow, I would start my day while the clouds through the winter, it was very dark. I would ride my bike downtown, close the gallery at like 6 p.m. It was pitch black. And so the only people I was talking to were customers. Otherwise, it was me. I did listen to music. I had a Pandora station that we listened to in the store. Otherwise, it was just me and my thoughts again. And so there's like a pattern of this in my whole life of just speaking or being in the industrial civilized world out of necessity. But otherwise retreating is not the right word. It's not a hiding. It's very, very curious, and spending lots of time in solitude just gives you full, wide eyes, full open ears, not interrupted by music, media, communications, conversations. It's just I want to watch my words here, a blank, responsive state. To listen in, to spy, to be curious. I kept many diaries, many notebooks. I don't look back on them often. I feel like doing so is an activity I will want to do many years from now. Maybe in 20 years, I'll want to take a look at those notebooks. I don't think it does me a ton of justice now. I will occasionally flip through, but I think a solid read is much later on in my life. But when I do peek, it is like overheard conversation, and it'll be verbatim, or I'll explain something I saw. And I still do this. I went on a job interview a couple days ago, and I was stopped at a light driving home from the job interview. I was stopped at a light, and a girl with her dog was just about to cross at the crosswalk when a guy in a work van was also just about to make the turn. And so we stopped real quick. She pulled her dog back and then started walking again. And the guy was like, "I'm sorry," like out his window, "I'm so sorry." And she's like, "Okay," walking. And so he yells out again as she's crossing the crosswalk, "I'm so sorry, like really, I really didn't mean it." And I see her like wave, and because she's walking towards me, I see her like roll her eyes, which I thought was so great. What a great like detail of being a person in your own life. Like she rolls her eyes. She was annoyed, of course. So then she, crosses the crosswalk, and I watch him out the window. It's like this bald-headed man. He has glasses. He's got a work truck. He's like, his arm is out the window, and he's like longingly watching this woman walk across the street. And he just like temporarily like fell in love with her, right? Like other solitary people do notice those things also. They get hung up, they get fixated, which is a facet I want to talk about solitude. But he got, struck, and it's like he's gonna think about that woman for like the next 36 hours of his life, right? Like that's, in solitude you might obsess more. So I guess that little anecdote is a great way to segue into what solitude can do that isn't awesome, and is when you're solitary by circumstance and maybe not by choice. Obsession thrives in solitude. All the like sexy aesthetic movies, require solitude. Humbert Humbert obsessing over Dolores. I forget all the characters' names in American Beauty, but that movie requires solitude from all the main players of that movie. There's tons others, and if my boyfriend was here, he would just list them off one by one. I don't really like movies that much, to be honest, but like, solitude gives birth to obsession, but obsession also clouds your ability to receive information. And my whole point in interest in solitude is being able to receive as much information as possible. So when I was younger, when I was 19 years old, I fell prey to lots of obsession. I was young, I was isolated, and my mental strength just wasn't wholly there yet, the way it is now that I'm 26 years old and do still fit a lot of these practices. Is you get obsessed. There's a person, there's a behavior, and in your mind, you're living life with them. And it's all constructed in your mind, and you have so much time to devote to your daydreams and to your telepathic messages and communications. And you are filtering all of the information you're taking in about the people around you, the way the world works around you. You're filtering all of that through this obsession. Which, if you have ever experienced a time like that, it is so rich, it is so ripe, it is so painful, and it is so... Our industrialized, socialized life has nothing comparable to that feeling. There's nothing that's super heightened and exciting and scary, and it feels like you haven't eaten because your stomach isn't better. We don't have anything like that. So it makes sense that you would want to give yourself over to a love in your mind. I completely get it. I had, lovers that I would write letters to who would drive from the desert of New Mexico in the middle of the night to come see me. They would, climb up. It's beautiful. But it also hinders the practice of solitude, which is what I am interested in. It is part of my pursuit. It is the first pursuit of myself as an artist, is the time spent alone to observe. It is the number one tenet of my practice. Every job requires me to have enough time to just creep. And so that's the number one. But you can't do that when you are feverishly insane over love or obsession. It's not possible to do both. I've never talked this much straight through before. Give me a second to look at my notes. I feel like I'm getting a little crazy. Yeah, so more downsides of solitude. I've done some crazy things in solitude. My mental strength has not always been where it is now, where I'm perfectly okay being alone in a quiet house, just contemplating, thinking, having, no, I'm not gonna use the metaphor. If you kind of think of like a bowling alley, you've got the training things up so you don't go in the gutter. I kind of have those for myself now, where I kind of don't let myself dip into dangerous and uncomfortable places. Sometimes I will put those down as an exercise just to be able to make sure that I can pull myself out of dark places. But that is an exercise. That is a solitary practice. It does have parameters. It does have guidelines. And that wasn't always the case for me. There are times where solitude, when you're not mentally strong enough, when you haven't learned it yet or whatever, found ways to take care of yourself mentally, you go to really dark places. I've been on antibiotics when I thought I had infections that I just did not have. Doctors aren't super thorough, so they do kind of like, that was the barrier to say, hey, you don't actually need those. I got them. And I was crazy about it. I was like, I thought I had a kidney infection. And I was like, I'm like, panic sob. I am never going to be able to pee normally again. I was fine. I had a regular UTI. It was okay. And then I thought the UTI came back. I thought it turned into a kidney infection. The downward spiral. I wasn't mentally strong enough to pull myself out of that. And that is obviously why we need community and people around us to be like, you're being crazy. But when you're practicing solitude, that's not always a feasible option. And I don't want to touch on that. I don't want to go too much like, this is what you can do. I'm just sharing from my experience things that I've learned. I've cut my hair a lot of times that I really, 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 really wish I hadn't. I have a lot of weird hang-ups with my hair. And so that's like a place that I feel like women will target when anybody, like there's a lot of humiliation around hair. It's a very sensitive issue for me. I've cut my hair in times that were self-punishment because of places I was going in my mind that they just cut me. I've done really weird things, like the house is falling apart, things are getting, I'm sharing like my deepest feelings with all of you. I've bleached my floors. I'm like, there's a smell in the wood that I can't get out. Bleached them. That's crazy. There was a plant that I loved, and I threw it away, and I couldn't even trace the logic back to why I did that. It's just sometimes when you do not have your mental strength enough to pull yourself out of, to even know that you're in a place that you need pulled out of, it's not always possible. There's one time I thought I had HIV. My sexual practices, I'm not gonna, share openly with you all, but there was no cause for concern. Zero cause. I thought I had it. I sobbed getting it, the finger prick. I was convinced I was going to die. I was perfectly fine. And the only thing I can say about that is a lapse in judgment, temporary insanity, some amnesia, some confusion. I believe very much that after spending time with my boyfriend, I feel great. I feel emotionally, and so having people who love you and care about you around you does shield you from some of those darker places. But again, what I receive and learn in solitude is number one for me. So that is kind of a liability when living this way, is you do sometimes go to dark places. I've said it already, I'm so much stronger now. I'm usually much more aware when I'm headed out to sea. Not always. Sometimes I go out to sea. That's, sometimes it's dark, but I'm so much better at it. I do fewer crazy things than I used to. So it's like, why would you choose to do that if you behave insane? The end is so justified for me. This is the big topic. This is, I guess, what you all have suffered through watching, is for me to talk about. I have held so much resentment in my body. So much. The tears could come right now just sharing that. There has been so much anger in my body that I know what it's directed at. I'm not confused. I'm not confused on I know who it's directed at. There are people with faces and names who deserved, in my rage state, who deserved something terrible. People have hurt me. People have wounded I've been humiliated. That is a core thing in all of my work, is shame and humiliation. I've been humiliated by people I thought were going to love me. People very close to me, people I was born to. I've experienced so much humiliation, and that can make you so hateful and so spiteful, and you just want someone to feel as bad as you've been made to feel. Like, it's not fair. Why? Like, what is it about me? What is inside me that has made this fair? And there are no answers for that. There isn't. That's a unhelpful line of thinking, but it's one that happens to everyone who has horrible things happen to, and most people have horrible things happen to them. That's like, I believe that's a hidden secret. Most people have unspeakable things that have happened to them at some point, and that's what Solitude was about for me. Was it gave me stable footing, just going into a world inside myself is where I found a stability that I was not granted otherwise. Everything just calmed down. I was able to find things about myself that I really liked. I was able to find things about myself that I thought needed work, that I could improve, and that I was giving myself opportunity. I didn't feel stuck by my behaviors. I thought, with enough time to think, collect my thoughts, collect my feelings, I could work on these things. I still feel that way. It has been a beautiful and beneficial thing to be able to see with my own eyes people who I thought just cut me to the core, that I was going to die because of these things, and to just feel nothing, to feel nothing. Of course, rage comes back up. That's, the body remembers, but to just feel nothing but empathy. And I, in no way, want to tell the beautiful, intimate story of these people. These people have done unspeakable things, but I understand. I will never partake in that. I will never be like that, because I'm lucky. I'm so much luckier than those people. They don't take a minute to think. And if they do have a minute to think, it is self-hating. The way you see yourself is the way you see the world. So if you know people who are just, people suck, everything sucks, those people are sad. Those people are unhappy. And it does require work from yourself to get yourself out of that. It really does. And a lot of people who have probably hurt you, who have definitely hurt me, are so much weaker than me. And that's not a flex. That's not a flex at all. It's sad. There are not many people who can do that, who can just take it on the nose over and over and over. Shit. Okay, maintenance came to replace the batteries in my smoke detector, so... Okay, so... what a fun thing to have to, jump in and out of, but that's okay. The emotions are still right there. So, I think that it has made it so unbelievably easy for me to not be mystified by the human experience. Spending time alone, solitude. I don't often feel surprised by the thoughts, behaviors, actions of other people. It does not often overwhelm me or surprise me. I feel as though it's usually pretty obvious. I feel like it's pretty obvious. I feel like I understand exactly why people do the things that they do. I'm never quick to feel put out either. And this is just purely anecdotal. It probably has to do with the people I know, the types of people I'm around. you know, all of these like circumstances. But one thing that I really, really discovered is the way people drive is often a real source of wealth of, this is why this person is like this. People who feel like they're being attacked when they get cut off, when they're like, fuck you, because of something silly. And I apply that kind of like silliness to other things that I observe and see by people in my life and people around me, where it's like, yeah, people do just like want a win, and they feel like cutting you off is the win. And it's like, that's a sad person. That person's probably going through some stuff, or went through some stuff, and now has like a jaded jacket on that shields them, you know. And I'm speaking really loosely. If, you know, you and I knew each other intimately, I'd tell you all the hot goss and all, you know, I wouldn't do that, but you know what I mean. Like, things are no longer surprising. I don't often feel whiplashed. I also find it so easy to just shield off the layers. One thing that has always been a source of contention for me is like, a lot of people do not know why they do the things that they do. I just shared with you my experience with that. Sometimes I just do crazy things. I'm bleaching my floors. You know, a lot of people don't know why they, and it's just, they are not given the opportunity through solitude, through time, through whatever, to untangle that big ball. And so things just keep like shooting out. Like, if you think of like a yarn ball, and you've got all this stuff wrapped up in it. So, you know, all of their weird quirks and habits, and I mean, throw fetishes in there, anything, all wrapped up in this ball, and stuff just kind of starts falling out, and they don't know why or how. And just, I have been given the gift through solitude of just being able to articulate really, really clearly, you know what? I'm in a really bad mood today. And understand completely that that bad mood is why I'm doing X, Y, Z, you know, why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. It also helps the bad mood not have full control over me. I'm not doing things that I can't understand or can't make sense of or wouldn't do otherwise. There are much, much fewer occasions, I would virtually say never, almost never, occasions where I would do something that I wouldn't do otherwise because of the emotional state I'm in. I'm pretty solid in that my actions and behaviors are things that I would do under any circumstance. That was not always the case for me. That is not always the case for a lot of people. So that is one of my biggest pros for living the way that I do, and have virtually always have. I knew it was in me since I was like 12, of how I wanted to be and experience the world around me. And empathy really can be handed out like little flowers. I feel like I've swimmed through oceans of disappointment just in my mind. I feel like I've seen like very brinks of my own sanity, of my own mortality, of, you know, and have come back to myself with just more knowledge. I like to think there's a line in a story by Karen Russell. She's one of my she's a favorite of mine, where she says she was a cartographer of imaginary places. And I like to think of that idea in my mind and in my body, where, you know, when I am going out to sea, there's like a real ocean, and that ocean is full of scary, hurtful, spiteful thoughts, ideas, experiences. And when I go out to sea, those are the things that I see and experience. And it's all in my mind, but it does, like, the way you see yourself is the way you see the world. So, you know, there is a mirroring, and there's places in my mind where I'm thinking thoughts that I'm pretending to be someone else. And so I'm thinking thoughts that other people would think. And there's so many different states and imagination and creativity that comes with ample amounts of solitude that has made it so easy to just be, and to not be super surprised, not be super scared, not be super overwhelmed, and to demystify, which I understand we all love the mystery. I still experience the mystery of the universe, but the human experience is not a mystery to me anymore. I'm not super surprised. I'm not super overwhelmed. I have new, easier, more effective ways of communicating with people who do not have those skills. Family members, anytime I've had challenging like work situations, it's just such a wash to just take people exactly where they are and just find ways that you can communicate the very basics to them with ease without you getting wrapped up in a world that doesn't make sense to you, where you're on the roller coaster of other people's lives. It just feels so good. I just watched 8 Mile again with some friends, and I have a secret. I really like that movie. But it just, like, you can visualize it. I visualize it. I feel like through my creative practice, I do a similar thing. In the end of the movie, when Eminem is rap battling and he lists off all of the things that other rappers could diss him for, about being white trash, about his, somebody had sex with his girlfriend, I forget. You've seen the movie, all the things that you could criticize Eminem for. And he's like, I am all of these things have happened. But he's standing in front of people, he's standing in front of community, his friends, his girl. And he's like, this and more. And that's such a wonderful, beautiful, violently graceful, I really do think it comes with grace, to just be able to do it, to just say, this is exactly what it is. It doesn't need a but. It doesn't mean I'm white trash, but it's just, this is what you think of me, okay. And it's just such a freeing, it's so special. And I think people who can do that, not finishing that sentence, but it's good. I will sometimes, when my brain goes out to sea, I'll think, when is it my turn to be realized in certain ways? Like my brother and his very close group of friends and long-term girlfriend. They're always doing things together in these very specific friends or nothing type way. But my receptors, my feelers, what I see and hear of the world, it just means more to me. It really does. It means more to me. I think in doing this, it is a deep appreciation for the world. It is a deep appreciation for people. It is a me and the world partnership that I just want to be there. I want to see it. I want to experience the world through other people's eyes. And I can do that by just creeping around, by just watching, listening, feeling, thinking, like a good memory, to just piece things together, just kind of peep everything. I ultimately think this is the life path for me. Solitude is the path for me. And I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful that I walked through that doorway as a 12-year-old, in spite of it being really weird and it coming off strange, and my parents getting lots of phone calls from the school about what a weird little freak I was. she was brave. 12-year-old me was so brave to start going through these doorways, to start exploring, to having curiosity on her mind and thinking it's valid, thinking it is a worthwhile pursuit to see what she can find. I have no idea if I made any points. Was this worth it? Was this worth it? Did we do good together? I don't know. But Richard has settled in for a nap. I need a little bit of lunch. So,